Well, this is Let Us Interrupt You, episode 152 here on Friday, June 9th, 2023. I am Joseph Alvo, and yes, I am wearing my Iggy's t-shirt once again. Technically not a sponsor for this podcast, which is why I couldn't really mirror this and have this not look like it's backwards here and have an Iggy spelled backwards here. But technically, I'm actually going to make this our sponsor for the night. It is sponsored by Iggy's. So there you go. Now that I get that out of the way, a lot of craziness going on in the sports world over the last 24 hours. I will say this, though. The Budweiser commercial apparently removed an ad by Ken Griffey Jr. I'm actually going to start off by talking about that for a minute. It was a Father's Day ad, and apparently Ken Griffey Jr. Budweiser ad, I guess, for Father's Day was removed. I didn't see the commercial. Didn't have time all week about this, but I'm just going to put this on a limb right now at this point where it was probably woke agenda related, political related, and stuff like that. And it upset a few people because, A, they don't like rich, famous athletes who are retired and have plenty of money, and, they don't want them to have as much money as possible. And they probably were like, weird conspiracy theory maybe. And Ken Griffey Jr., the nicest guy in the world. No one has anything negative to say about the guy. And I didn't put this in the description of the episode. I just realized I completely forgot about it, and I didn't think I was going to start off right away with it. But let me put this in perspective. If Bud Light is trying to redeem themselves at this point by removing an ad that was probably not even negative at all, due to the whole Dylan Bolosky thing, which, by the way, their sales are plummeting down since that whole transgender reveal. And the whole thing of it was her commercial ad had nothing to do with the beer in the first place. But when you have a commercial about a beer come from one of the greatest baseball players in the early 2000s, and Ken Griffey Jr., and what? Because he took steroids in his career when he at some point in his career got into Hall of Fame. It bothers me that he did a Budweiser commercial, but people are upset about Dylan Bolosky at this point. So let's just basically, remove his ad, but not remove the ad at this point for Dylan Bolosky, which, by the way, is still on YouTube. It's still being shown on TV. It's still being talked about as is. And it's just, I had a comment on this because I thought to myself, this was the stupidest decision that Budweiser could do at this point. Budweiser at this point and Bud Light are going to be no more by the end of all this. If they keep doing what they're doing, and here's a sad thing about the transgender thing during the commercial, didn't know what the NCAA tournament was about. And this person was born as a guy. You're born as a guy. You didn't even turn to a transgender until you started doing this commercial. And really, if you think about it, here's the sad thing about this whole thing. I wouldn't be surprised if this Dylan Bolosky kid went through this change to make money off of Budweiser and Bud Light. That wouldn't surprise me. And I'm actually more convinced now that that's actually the case here, because they didn't even want to give the money to Ken Griffey Jr., but they have no problem with one of the worst ads of all time that was so terrible. They're willing to pay that at this point and expect people to buy the freaking beer. When you got people right now who are going into supermarkets that sell beer, destroying the beers, destroying all the Bud Light, all the Budweiser. You've killed every vibe that you've had at this point. Why would anybody, and the support of something like that is so life-changing, and really it's a publicity stunt for transgenders because they want to make everything trans-free, right? Have transgenders drink beer. Like, when were they not allowed to drink beer? I don't know. Anybody with as far as I'm concerned, with a genitalia and a hole to me, because I'm not going to say the word that a lot of people want me to say at this point, because I'm trying to keep this PG. But you get the point. I will put this in. I would say pussy. Can I say? Is that better? Does pussy sound better? They can have Budweiser too. To have somebody that changed their gender because they either weren't happy with themselves or for a publicity stunt to me, and you're trying to explain how much an honor it was, and you didn't even know what the Final Four was. I don't believe that for 1 second. Anybody who's not a sports fan knows what these tournaments are about, and I just don't buy for somebody who's been alive at this point for 27 years, longer than I have, wouldn't know about it. I just don't buy that for 1 second. But Ken Griffey Jr.'s ad is for Father's Day, nevertheless. Probably did a great job promoting the crap out of this freaking Bud Light, even though he was all against it. And he was actually pro-trans. It's like, whatever you want to do, free, whatever. He's not woke, but he's free for people to make up their own decisions. I get that. I can respect that. But what I hate is the aftermath of it. Them explaining the process and creating stories in their heads of why they actually did it in the first place. Making lies up, really. Saying that you always wanted to do this and you're dreaming about this since you were a little kid. I don't buy that for 1 second. That's what I really hate. I can't stand when it gets down to that juncture. When it gets down to that juncture, to that point of view, you're not doing it for the right reasons. You're not doing it for the right reasons. There's no point at this point to make and the sad thing is it drives me crazy, but we're all getting to the point now of looking at this for what it is, and it's a big publicity stunt for transgenders out there to talk about a lifestyle of choices that really were scripted instead of truthful. Then somebody who's actually doing a truthful ad who's always drank Bud Light and did it for the freaking kids. It wasn't a bad negative ad. It wasn't I didn't even get a chance to look at the ad really, but I can't imagine it being freaking bad. In fact, I actually saw pictures of the ad actually on a podcast, Black, White, and Sports. And I didn't hear the actual quote of the art, what the article had said. But I'm thinking in my head at this point, they're trying to redeem themselves because they know their sales are plummeting. And they're all realizing that. I mean, it's all over TikTok of how many freaking people are not buying their beer and how full the cases are in liquor stores. We all get the idea. But to remove an ad that could have saved yourself and redeemed yourself at this point and then go with an ad that sounds so staged and so scripted, and it was all about transgenders to me, I find that to be very stupid. I do. And to support somebody who doesn't even care about the alcohol they drink. They just did it for the money. And at that point, Bud Light wasn't struggling, but now they're doing pretty bad. Budweiser is part of that class, so that's why that's where it really all started. Budweiser created Bud Light. So Bud's not going to do so well anytime soon. And it's a shame because really, if you think about it, really, that was a great beer, Budweiser. Bud Light, meh at best. Was not a good beer at all. I had the Bruin theme song, by the way, playing for anyone who was trying to figure out what that was about. But I will get into Zion Williamson. Zion Williamson knocked up a girl he was cheating on his lover, cheated on her on his lover with another girl, got her knocked up. By the way, this girl has been together with him for such a long period of time, and now it's being rumored that there will be there's a third girl in part of this triangle at this point. And all I gotta say about Zion is he's playing a dangerous game. The fact that this guy is being a savage about this whole thing and just knocking up one girl, over another girl, and while you're dating your one true love, who you loved for most of your life, who's been around you for years and years and years, and you screw her over. I just think that that's just a heartless man. Who, in the beginning, I said to myself, oh, I can respect this guy. He was around his girl for a while. I can learn, tips, how to be a good, man to somebody. And he goes out of his way to knock up one girl. And I wouldn't be, and now at this point, there's a possible rumor about the other girl possibly being pregnant at this point, which, if that's the case, that's going to be a lot of child support pay with 2 baby mamas. Let me tell you that one. A lot of child support pay. And I wouldn't be surprised if there's a third, if the original girl that Zion was with is knocked up too. So this would not surprise me at this point. And that might be the story. Is that all 3 of them were knocked up. I didn't get a chance to read the article this week. I've had a long, busy week. I had a chance to read all the other stuff I was using for the podcast tonight anyway. But this is just on top of the cake at this point. This is a Zion Williamson problem at this point. If he's trying for the Atlanta Love and Hip Hop show, he aced the audition. That's an A+ audition if this is what it is. Because I actually titled this. This was not the original plan of the show, by the way, with this being named the show. Just FYI. I had I would say 7 different, if not more than probably 20, maybe 40 different title names for this podcast for today. Because so much happened this week. But this right here was the tipping point for me. Because I'm looking at Zion Williamson now as a person, and he's nothing but a dog. A dog at this point that was too stupid to pull out in the first place. And now he got and now granted, he's got the money in the world. He's got, fame and fortune at this point. He's set at this point, right? Making money from his Nike, from his Jordan deals and all that stuff. Nike, whatever he's doing. He's probably doing a clothing line too. He was making money off of in Duke as well and never had to give that back. The guy's set, really. So if you think about it really now, that child support should be no problem at this point. Unless he's Antonio Brown, he's going broke. Then otherwise, I'd say this guy's a real dumb idiot. But I don't know, to knock up one girl, possibly two or three. And I'm not even sure if the 2 or 3 wins are even true, but it's going to happen. It's going to come out within the next 24 hours that this love triangle involved a third woman. And I would say the other 2 women that are involved might get knocked up too. I wouldn't be surprised. When you're getting close to the point right now of performing a sexual act and you're not wearing protection and you feel like you have the urge at this point and you need to stop this at this point and get to the climax of it, pull out. I know it ain't the manly thing to freaking do, but pull out. If you don't want to do anything stupid, if you're not ready to have freaking kids, which I don't, Zion could be ready, but let's be real here. Let's be realistic here. I don't think Zion was thinking in his mind that he was going to get this girl knocked up. And if I'm the other girl at this point, the first one, I leave. What's the sense? He wasn't faithful. Why waste the time? Why waste the time? No sense of it. No sense for this. No sense for that to happen. To waste your time on that one. It just, I don't get that logic really. I don't get that logic at all. So that's that. Tyler Hero's updated at this point. Heat point guard Tyler Hero not yet cleared to play in the NBA Finals game 4, and for the game 4 wasn't even cleared for game 3. I will review actually game 3 right about now anyway before I get into more NBA news, which is probably a good thing. I'm actually we're going through this beforehand because realistically at this point, I need to go through these games because I need to figure out at this point how to review this and how to preview this game tonight. Because game 4 is tonight, by the way. I believe it starts at 8:30, which is, I know I'm doing this late, but I needed a haircut. So if anybody likes the haircut, let me know in the comments section if you like the haircut. I know I don't really get a lot of comments that often. I've gotten a few recently though, but that's good. Game 3 though, which was on Wednesday, Denver just destroyed Miami. Jamal Murray went off in that second half, held the team to 34 points. I think the Joker had about 32. He had 32 points. Both played at a combined 90 minutes. The Joker had 10 assists, 32 points, 21 rebounds, 10 assists. Murray had 34 points, 10 rebounds, 10 assists. Both guys got triple doubles. Aaron Gordon had a double-double in the game. He had 11 points, 10 rebounds. This game was very tight, very competitive early in the first half. Denver just ran away with it in the second half. There was no chance for Miami to get back in this game. Kevin Love was reduced to 16 minutes in the game as a starter. He had 6 points. Butler had 28 points, 1 for 4 from 3, 11 from 24 overall in the game. Adebayo had 22 points, but despite that, had 17 rebounds, 3 assists, was 7 for 21 in the game. Vincent was terrible. 2 for 10, 1 from 6 from 3, 7 points. Struss had 3 points. When Struss doesn't do anything and Vincent doesn't do anything, Miami can't win the game. And Miami gets torched by 15 points or more. And this has happened a lot now in this game. The only player that really contributed off the bench, Chris Martin, 10 points, 32 minutes, 4 for 9 from the 2-point range, 2 for 5 from 3. Fouled 4 times, 3 rebounds, 3 assists. Didn't do much in this game. So, not much else to say when you have 10 points out the bench. That doesn't do you good. And Duncan Robinson had 9 points as well. So 19 points out the bench for Miami. You have Denver, who just had 9 because they just got the starters in there for most of the game. This was Denver's coming out party. This was the co-MVP conversation starter with Jamal Murray and the Joker. And at this point, if Jamal Murray goes off and has himself a 36-point game, 38-point game, the Joker can have a triple-double in that game with 21 rebounds. Jamal Murray might get MVP. And I think Denver has won this series. I think Denver has established now at this point that if Gabe Vincent and Struss don't step up, and Butler has to do everything, Butler and Bayo get tired. So that's the only way Miami can make this a competitive series. I could see this going into a 7-game series still. The problem is if Vincent and Struss don't show up, they're not making this into a 7-game series. They're not going to win this series. Game 4 being tonight, short rest. You got guys at this point that are that are cold as ice anyway that were on the bench. Robinson, who barely did anything, and Martin, who barely did anything. You put Kevin Love in his position for no reason at all, and the point of it was you leave him in there for 20 minutes. The guy's not injured, and he's your starter, but you only have him in there for 16 minutes. That made no sense. Abeyo was in there for 41 minutes. Vincent was in there for 32. Struss was in there for 24. Honestly, Martin's a good small forward to put in there in that situation. I don't know why you don't do that. Put him in there as a small forward and put Butler as a shooting guard. To me, it makes the most sense here. I'm sorry, but it does. You got Highsmith who needs to play in this one too. I hate to say it, but having Highsmith in there as a power forward to me makes the most sense too. Kyle Lowry, by the way, had 9 points in this one as well. I completely forgot he was there. So that's 28 points off the bench for Miami. Lowry at this point needs to be in there as well. And if Lowry needs to be in there and take Gabe Vincent's place and Vincent needs to come off the bench to change up the lineup a little bit, that's the way they have to do it. I don't see why Miami doesn't go through with that. I really don't understand that at all. I just think that'd be such a waste at this point to have Miami play such a great series and all just have to change it up because Vincent and Struss can't do nothing. Struss is not consistent anyway. Neither is Vincent. So all the overhype on Vincent at this point, I mean, Vincent helps out, but as far as the eliteness goes, so far, he's not the elite player. I don't think he's elite. He ain't no Butler. He ain't no LeBron. He ain't no Curry. He ain't no Jamal Murray as far as I'm concerned. He ain't no Damian Lillard. So enough of the hype on Vincent because it's overkill. Stanley Cup final was on last night. It'll be on tomorrow night as well at 8 o'clock. It will be in Florida again. Game 3 was in Florida, and it did go to overtime. Florida, by the way, who's undefeated in overtime games, has not lost an overtime game this postseason, by the way, has now, I believe, gone 10-0, I believe. And I could be wrong in this one, but I think they are going 10-0. As far as overtime goes for overtime games, Montour got the first period goal. Stone got the power play goal for the Vegas Golden Knights, tied up at 1-1. Marshall got a power play goal in the second period, so 2-1. Tatanka got the goal for Florida late in the third. Overtime comes around, and Charlie Verngay got the game-winning goal as the Panthers win in overtime at home. Goes 10-0, I believe, at home in overtime games this year. 3-2. Series ain't over yet, as far as I'm concerned. Florida basically showed up for Game 3, and they said they're gonna try to close this chapter out in Game 4. They're gonna tie this up in 2-2. They'll revisit the next chapter when they get back to Florida. That's the mindset here. And I'm not saying Vegas is done at this point. Maybe I did jinx Florida's momentum a little bit. Maybe I did overstep it here by saying I would go with Vegas at this point. I'm still on the fence. I might be going back to my original prediction, which was Florida winning in 6 games. Which, if Florida can force another overtime here and play a competitive series throughout and go 11-0 in overtime, and they got to fly back to Vegas, which is time difference zone, which doesn't give Vegas a lot of momentum going back into Game 5. It just doesn't. Because now at this point, when you allow another team that wins 2 straight games and you go back to West Coast time here, a lot of momentum is going to go on the Florida side going into that Game 5. And Vegas could win Game 5, but then you got to go back to Florida, which you haven't won a series in yet so far. It's realistically, it's not looking good for the Golden Knights. It's not. This could be another Bruce Cassidy choke job at this point. And this team's way too talented to choke. This is one of the better teams I've seen all year. Way too talented to be choking this season. Way too talented. And I think it'd be a mistake at this point. It'd be a mistake at this point for that to play out the way it's going to play out. If Vegas chokes here, what is that? Does that make the Bruin fans happy? Absolutely. Absolutely it does. Speaking of Bruin fans, I did play the thing earlier. One of the referees that was in the first round of the series against the Florida Panthers had to be removed, apparently, due to the fact that there was favoring Boston due to some bets. So the referee was accused of it. At this point, I don't know who the referee was named here. It was according to an article. I will say this though about the gambling thing, and why it doesn't surprise me, and why we're not gonna, and why I wouldn't go as far as this. This is according to Big Bad Bruins Nation. So referee accused of rigging playoffs in favor of Boston, which, by the way, if this was the case going forward here, if that was what the story was, boy, they're stupid. NHL referee Chris Rooney facing backlash due to the situation for his officiating in the Stanley Cup Finals. This is what the article says here. NHL fans are expressing their frustration with referee Chris Rooney following Game 2 between the Florida Panthers and the Vegas Golden Knights. Many are criticizing his officiating, pointing out several instances where calls were missed or poorly made. The second game of the Panthers versus Golden Knights series was a highly intense and physical demanding showdown, resulting in a staggering total of 148 penalty minutes for both teams. During the game, a controversial incident unfolded right before our eyes of the NHL referee. Vegas defenseman Brian McNabb cross-checked Matthew Tkachuk into the Knights' net, but surprisingly, no penalty was called. Tkachuk, being hit from behind, found himself facing harassment from the Knights goaltender, who delivered a couple of shots and even took a swing at Tkachuk with the paddle of his stick. While it's worth noting that Tkachuk may have aggravated the situation by attempting to push Hill to free himself from the net or retaliate, this was only in response to Hill boxing him in initiating the altercation. Unfortunately, the referee failed to intervene, allowing play to continue, which ultimately led to the Golden Knights scoring and taking the 2-goal lead. The sequence of events clearly warranted a stoppage in play, with either Aiden Hill or both players involving being penalized for roughing, slashing, or any appropriate infraction. The fact that the entire incident was uncalled right in front of the referees is truly outrageous. And actually, if you do get a good look at this, that's what it looks like here. That's what it led to. This honestly was Chris, and I heard more about this Chris Rooney stuff right now with the penalties that were called in that series, and some of the calls even in the Boston Bruins series were just kind of lackluster. There were some calls that went against Boston too that were kind of stupid too. So it was even out the bad Florida calls. This right here is just downright conspiracy theory with Chris Rooney, and I wouldn't be surprised if and I saw the bad penalty that were called against Florida. Terrible calls. The slashing, the high stick, and just dumb, stupid calls. And I gotta say right now, at this point, for Chris Rooney, he should be removed from the entire Stanley Cup final. The fact that this guy was part of the first round playoffs in favoring Boston, right? To not even have that removed, that's on Gary Bettman in the NHL. That really is. Unfortunately, that's on him totally. There's no question about it. If the officiating was that bad, which looking back on these game summaries right now, on these game logs, they were, then Chris Rooney should have been removed from day one. That entire crew should have been punished. And instead, they let this crew play in for the Stanley Cup final, which to me, I get it's more of an NHL story at this point about the Bruins at this point, how they were cheated out of the thing. But they really weren't cheated when, really, if you think about it, the first 4 games of that series, they kind of used the referee's advantage here. They were screwing around with the Florida fan base, which was hard to believe that Florida got that winning Game 5. Coincidentally, at this point, Game 6 and 7, I don't believe Rooney was even refereeing that game. So you could argue right now that maybe Gary Bettman dropped the ball here and let this guy referee in this series. But if it comes to find out that the Golden Knights won those 2 games because of those bad penalties from Game 1 and Game 2, because there were bad ones in Game 1 as well, then Chris Rooney could be permanently removed from his job. This guy could be blackballed like Pete Rose was in Major League Baseball. That could be a possibility. And that's not looking good for the officiating crew at this point, for the NHL, for this guy to do placing bets here. And it's just very stupid. That's all I'm going to say. Very stupid. Let's see here. So we got some NFL news we got to get into now. We'll start with DeAndre Hopkins. DeAndre Hopkins this weekend is visiting the it's visiting the Tennessee Titans this Sunday. And I believe Tuesday or Wednesday, I want to say, DeAndre Hopkins will be going to the New England Patriots. Now, it could all be a slur. It could all be, some kind of conspiracy theory here. Hopkins screwing around with Bill Belichick and just pulling the 180 here. 23 years later, he goes from going to New England to go to some other team. Could cheat out Bill Belichick, like Bill Belichick cheat out of the Jets when he was going to go coach for the Jets, but then he decided to coach for New England. That could happen. Hopkins could decide, you know what? I wasn't going to go to the Patriots, now I'm going to go to the New York Jets. Or I'm going to go to the Miami Dolphins. Or I'm going to go to the Buffalo Bills. Payback's coming for D-Hop. And really for Bill. And I think at this point, for a lot of people out there, that realistically, and if we're going to really be really honest with ourselves now going forward here, and it wouldn't surprise me in the slightest here, that right now, DeAndre Hopkins is not going to go to the New England Patriots. Okay? This won't be a shock to anybody if that's the case. It'll be a shock the way it's being pulled off, but I won't be shocked by this whole thing. This is revenge a long time coming to Bill Belichick at this point, to pull the wool over Jet fans' eyes for the last 20 years of, sticking it to the Jets and all this bull crap with useless draft picking and trading and ridiculousness. It's dumb. It's dumb. It's child play. Stuck in an era at this point. So, an era where he thinks he's right and everybody else is stupid, but in reality, D-Hop's going to make Bill Belichick stupid in about 3 or 4 days from now. That's the sad part. That's the sad part about this whole thing. Nick Bosa feeling pretty confident that he'll get an extension done with the 49ers by start of training camp. He pretty much quoted it here by saying pretty confident he'll get an extension. And look, I mean, I got to be honest here. Nick Bosa deserves the extension here. He's one of the better defensive players in the NFL right now. He's been leading in sacks on the team now for the last 3 or 4 seasons. Leads in, second and third behind tackles with Fred Warner here. I mean, this is a guy that's done it all here. This guy was basically the face of his franchise. And people want to say it's George Kittle. It's Nick Bosa. I hate to freaking say it to you people. Nick Bosa is a bad man. This guy has got the inner dog in him. And I gotta tell you right now at this point, he'll get an extension by training camp. And if the 49ers don't give him an extension here, just like the bad mistake of letting Jimmy Garoppolo go, losing Nick Bosa too would be the dumbest things this franchise has ever done. Probably since Joe Montana leaving the 49ers and not keeping him around. Because realistically, you could have kept Joe Montana that way too. Because I always felt like Montana going to Kansas City Chiefs just never felt right. Because he was never the same after that. He never got back to his winning days. Really, he got to some playoffs with the Kansas City Chiefs, but otherwise, he was never the same person he was in San Francisco. So, to me, having Montana go and replace him with Steve Young, and then later on you replace him with Jeff Garcia, it's like, now you replace Garoppolo with Brock Purdy. It's the same exact, you're saying it's the exact same thing. And Brock Purdy and Trey Lance is next. So it's all in the family here when it comes to the stupidest, dumb mistakes these teams make every single time. Derrick Henry wants the trade rumors to stop as far as the not thinking about being traded anytime soon. Wants to focus on playing football with the Tennessee Titans. Let's be realistic here. He's just butthurt at this point that he can't report it, that he wanted to get traded in the first place. He's not happy with the Tennessee Titans at this point with the lack of effort they're putting in to put a super team together. And they're stuck in a rebuild mode, possibly with Will Levis. You think he's happy right now at this point about that? I don't. I don't think he's one bit happy about that at all. So to me, let the guy be angry. But don't let the media force it down my throat, is what he's saying. He's basically telling the media to shut the bleep up and move on. I'm not getting traded, I don't think, so leave me alone about it. That's what Derrick Henry really wants to say. And I wouldn't be surprised if he felt that way. Buffalo Bill quarterback Josh Allen is the cover boy for Madden NFL 24. First Buffalo Bill player ever to get on the Madden NFL cover. So again, once again, congrats to Josh Allen. Well deserved. I had Jalen Hurts on there just because of the MVP type of like performance he had all year. The guy that has over 112 turnovers at this point in his first 4 or 5 years in the league. Not a lot of all first, all pros, honestly. Not an MVP candidate, although he was close to being an MVP candidate 3 years ago. But, realistically, he's on the cover. So, Bills Mafia is going to love that. And apparently, according to the script, according to some people right now, the Buffalo Bills are going to be Super Bowl champions this year. I'll believe it when I see it. And as soon as they get that dome, they'll win a Super Bowl. Because right now, they can't win in cold weather. They can't do it. So until they prove me wrong that they can't do that, great. Otherwise, I'm done with that. Done with that conversation. I really am. It's a dumb conversation to have in the first place. Dalvin Cook, a free man from the Minnesota Vikings at this point, according to CBS Sports, was cut as of yesterday. Well, actually, it could have signed with another team today. Technically, they made the cut announcement today, but he was released yesterday. They waived him yesterday. And I got to be honest with you right now, I'll say this. I'll say it once, I'll say it again. The Miami Dolphins should cash in and sign this guy. I don't know why they don't do it. We all know they want him. It's not tampering at this point. If a guy has been cut at this point and you just saved $10 million of your Minnesota right now by doing that, look, at this point, it's realistic that he ends up going to Miami. I don't see why he would want to go play with a team like Detroit, where you don't know if you're there for real or not. So it's looking interesting. But according to CBS Sports, here's what the landing spots are going to most likely be. This is a guy, by the way, who's since 2019 has had the third most rushing yards in 5,024 rushing yards, second most rushing touchdowns at 43, and 258 first down rushing plays. Just saying, that's pretty huge. Here's your landing spots, though, according to the I'll go down from 4 to 1. This is where it gets good here. The Arizona Cardinals are number 4. Arizona has the cap space to acquire Cook. They also have a need of running back behind James Conner, who, given his injury history, would benefit by having a back of Cook's caliber to share a backfield with. Dalvin Cook, James Conner combination, to me, I just think to myself, it's kind of meh. And when you have no Kyler Murray here, unless that Arizona Cardinal team could somehow make something happen and get a quarterback in a trade or something like that, or Tom Brady gets out of retirement somehow and decides randomly to go retire to Arizona, that's really the only way that happens here. But then it's like, why did you release DeAndre Hopkins at this point then? Why did you let that happen? There's going to be a big trade along the line here coming along the way. I have a funny feeling that the Buffalo train at this point ain't over. Stephon Diggs removed himself from Twitter for the Buffalo Bills. He removed his Instagram bio story. He removed Facebook and everything from Buffalo. So the Stephon Diggs show could happen in Arizona. They might have a cap space for a cheaper contract at this point. You give Dalvin Cook the money he deserves anyway, over a wide receiver at this point who's always been disgruntled with every team he's played with. So that's still on the table. You also have the possibility of this going getting Cedric Wilson Jr. Maybe Amari Cooper gets sick and tired of playing with the Cleveland Browns and a quarterback that sexually harasses all the employees. And I wouldn't be surprised if he starts another case up in Akron, Ohio, in Cleveland. We get Deshaun Watson's genitalia destruction part 2 in Cleveland. That could happen. And that could piss off a lot of players, and that could make certain players who expect more out of Watson to want to leave and go play with Arizona. That could be a possibility too. But Dalvin Cook, basically being with the Arizona Cardinals means a rebuild mode. Yes, they have the cap space. Yes, they have the money to give him, but does it really make realistic sense to take him here? No. If you're in rebuild mode, why the hell would you want to be in rebuild? He wants to be in championship winning mode now. Chicago Bears. For starters, the Bears, this is according to the article here. This is, by the way, everything I'm reading here is all according to the article. So, YouTube, don't copyright me at this point. Don't screw me over here. Just don't. Okay? For starters, the Bears have the cap space to acquire Cook, who has given Chicago plenty of headaches during his time in Minnesota. Cook would be an upgrade over the Bears' current group of backs that include Dante Foreman, the former Tennessee Titan, Khalil Herbert, and rookie Rashawn Johnson. That is a desperate need for running backs at this point and a desperate rebuild mode that is failing miserably in Chicago. And Dalvin Cook being a star in Chicago with a bad offensive line, I don't see the realistic case of him going to a team with a bad offensive line. He just came from one with a bad offensive line. Why the hell would you want to go back to one that has even a worse offensive line? That's pretty bad. So no, he ain't going there. As much as I like to see him going to Buffalo, I can't imagine him in a Buffalo Bill uniform. And Dolphins are the final choice, of course. And look, this is what the Dolphins really have at this point. They have long viewed this guy as a top landing spot. He's a Florida native. He's got friends and family there, and he has played well at Florida State. Okay? Dalvin Cook belongs with the Dolphins, and he should have played with the Dolphins from day one. And that team would have improved on having an offensive line at this point. So they already fired their offensive line coach. They already got some offensive line fixtures here. And they have a pretty unique coach in Mike McDaniels, who is the real deal. You know, Denver became also in the mix of the conversation of intrigue behind Dalvin Cook, but Dalvin Cook's not going to go to Denver and not going to play with selfish Russell Wilson. Unless we're going to get the fixed version of Russell Wilson brought to you by the one and only Sean Payton. Otherwise, there's no point. There's no point in that happening. But realistically, though, I wouldn't mind Dalvin Cook going to Arizona if Tom Brady would have come out of retirement. That would be intriguing. Because going to Colt McCoy and Dalvin Cook here, if Colt McCoy could somehow get Arizona into a playoff spot, that'd be amazing. With Jonathan Gannon as a coach here, like I said before, it's not going to happen. They're going to go 0-17 with Colt McCoy as a quarterback. And even when Kyler Murray comes back, he is not going to be that competitive. You look at a guy that's already out of the playoff race at this point. He doesn't care. He knows Caleb Williams is going to replace him anyway. There you go. And realistically, if it doesn't work out with Dalvin Cook in Miami, he can always go back in 2024 and play with Caleb Williams. That could be a possibility. Odell's going to be a free agent anyway, unless he gets to sign a long-term deal with the Ravens. Then you have the Odell, DeAndre Hopkins show reunite in Arizona with Dalvin Cook as your running back and Caleb Williams as your quarterback. That looks like a team that could win a Super Bowl by looking at those dynamics right there in Arizona. That could be a possibility. Unless Larry Fitzgerald comes out of retirement and just ruins the whole freaking thing. Even though technically he's not retired. He's not a free agent technically. He's still part of the Arizona Cardinals roster, which is kind of insane to think about. The Cardinals never cut him, never released him. Unless he cut himself. Because sometimes I don't even see his name on the active roster list. But otherwise, I don't see the point of the Arizona Cardinals taking him. That's pretty dumb. I'm just saying that's pretty stupid. Titan Star wants to talk about how the team's not rebuilding. We're trying to build a winning culture, post quote, according to where I go at CBS Sports. Realistically, this is all just so Derrick Henry won't get traded. We already know at this point that Derrick Henry soon enough will be traded to Buffalo. It's going to happen because Buffalo's in desperate need of running backs. Unless somehow Derrick Henry gets somehow traded to Arizona to go on from one team that needs to rebuild desperately to a team that's going to rebuild and fire their head coach in 1 year by going 0-17 and getting Caleb Williams. To me, that's the case. Or you can end up going to the Chicago Bears to a team that desperately needs a running back in the slightest. Khalil Herbert, who was supposed to be the number one running back, never was a number one running back. David Robinson took that job even though he was running back too. He played like the number one. Herbert is not a number one running back on this team in Chicago. It's not realistic. You want to know who the number one running back is on that team? Justin Fields, and he's your starting quarterback. I just rest my case right there. But Jeffrey Simmons trying to convince all these Titan fans for this rebuild, that's not happening. It's going to happen. And unfortunately, you're going to lose your head coach over it in Mike Vrabel. It sucks. But it is what it is. There's no other way of looking at it. So I think that's realistically the case now going forward with this. I'm just saying. Speaking of Tom Brady, by the way, I meant to mention this earlier. Tom Brady, I said that might be the voice of reason for this because the NFL is turning to Tom Brady for help. Quarterback asked to warn players about the perils of gambling in leagues, in their case, their buildings here. Now, we don't know if there's a meeting going on this week about Tom Brady right now, talking to all the players who were suspended for gambling, I guess. Maybe it'll be Gambling Anonymous here, the GAA, they'll probably call it. To me, I think the NFL at this point has a gambling problem. I think it's all this DraftKings logo stuff right now and all these bettors right now and stuff like that, DraftKings and Twin River and casinos, you name it, right? The fact that this is more of a problem now in the 2020s here, you might as well just give it away at this point. You don't want anybody to gamble against your team when you lose or when you win. Maybe that's what they're factoring in. They're all betting on each other at this point and their performances, and they don't like it because the owners are not benefiting from it. So Tom Brady, a player who's been retired at this point, has been asked by the commissioner and probably by the owners to just stop it here at this point so we don't lose any money off these players. We want them to have them get paid according to what we're liking is. And Tom Brady can be that voice of reason at this point. I mean, at this point, I don't see how he would be, considering he's practically backing out of the Fox Sports deal of being a broadcaster. You think this guy at this point is going to be a voice of reason at this point to stop these players from gambling when most of them are friends with Tom Brady? No. He's a voice of reason. I did put it in my Facebook news feed. But as far as what's happening now with this whole freaking thing, I'm surprised my light didn't come out in here. I'm sorry. I was trying to. If I was clapping in the background because I was trying to get a light. There we go. See, the lighting here doesn't help. Lighting here doesn't help. It's starting to get a little dark in here. But anyway, if Tom Brady refuses to be the voice of reason here, and he might be, because he doesn't want to be the voice of reason for broadcasting right now at this point and be a critic here. If he can't do it for broadcasting, he can't do it for this. But he is a good voice of reason, though. I mean, he might get into players, but when it's his friends, he'll politic his way out of not doing it and doing his own thing. He's done it before in New England, and I commend him for it. You know, I could commend him for it because he's still one of the boys. He's not a corporate guy. He's not going to sell you out down the river. And I can respect that from Tom Brady. I can. So the NFL commissioner and the owners at this point basically begging Tom Brady, which is what they're basically doing. It's kind of sad for the NFL. It kind of is. If they're not gambling on team facilities at this point, then there's no reason for these players to be suspended. We don't even know if they've been gambling on team time. They've just been suspended just because. So who knows? I think the whole thing is just dumb. If you want my honest opinion, it's just ridiculously stupid. It really is. Anyway, Tyler Hero. Oh, I already mentioned Tyler Hero already. I'm sorry. Frank Clark. I don't know why the Tyler Hero thing came up twice on my feed here. Frank Clark, formerly from the Kansas City Chiefs, 2-time Super Bowl champion, 3-time Pro Bowler, heading to the Denver Broncos on a 1-year, $7 million deal. I'm surprised at the signing because I really thought Frank Clark was going to come back and stick around. I thought, there was a rumor about him going to Washington. That didn't happen. And the fact he's heading to the Denver Broncos, your arch rival here, and you're going to see this guy twice. The headline for this is Frank Clark's return to Kansas City this year, and not Tyreek Hill's, unfortunately. Kind of ironic, right? Kind of ironic how they actually managed to do that, really. I'm just saying. It's kind of ironic how the NFL kind of twisted it this year. So, it's not as much hype because Frank Clark at this point, was on the outs of Kansas City anyway. They weren't going to re-sign him. It's kind of sad because Frank Clark and the Chiefs organization were close. And the fact that they just lost Norma Hunt not too long ago, and 2 days later you decide to trade the guy, or not even trade him, you lose out. And they could have gotten back for a 1-year, $7 million at this point. I don't know why Kansas City let that slide. I really don't. To me, it makes no sense. He was one of the better defensive players you had in your football team. I think it's outrageous they let this guy go. Seahawks rookie landing a groundbreaking deal. Here was the rookie's name. Derek Hall is making a headlines this week after signing an unprecedented deal with the Seahawks. This is what the deal is entailed here. Being paid 85% of his signing bonus before starting of training camp, which is the most money ever given in a second rounder before camp. Hall signing a bonus is worth $3.629 million, and he'll be getting $3.08 million before the Seahawks kick off training camp in July. That's huge. That's a huge breaking deal at this point for a guy who hasn't really done anything yet in training camp, or really anything in OTAs or minicamp at all. Apparently, he's been impressive. I haven't heard the news in OTAs, but he's been impressive. So congrats to Hall. Well deserved, in my opinion. I mean, basically just, simp the NFL for more money here. It's, or your team really, and you haven't really done anything. You're a smart man. There's a lot of rookies out there that aren't really smart when it comes to their money. There really isn't. Then again, you're going to watch out for taxes and everything else like that anyway. So that's that. I wasn't going to get into the Jamal Adams story, but I'm going to save that story for tomorrow. I'm actually going to save the Damian Lillard story also for tomorrow about his heart-to-heart conversation that he had with Jason Tatum tomorrow. So this will be all tomorrow. That'll be on tomorrow's episode of the podcast. I'm going to go back to the NBA for a minute. Bucks small forward Chris Middleton had knee surgery after the playoffs and before potential free agency, per report. He's trying to get his knee healthy. That's the only positive I can hear from that, really. Middleton, I think, should come to a really great team that could use him. I don't know if Milwaukee's going to retain him, to tell you the truth. I think Giannis' contract is going to be an issue. The fact that Middleton at this point isn't really been thought of at this point for return to Milwaukee at this point. There's been no report on him going to stay in Milwaukee, to me, is kind of a bad sign. Because the whole landscape of the NBA might change a little bit with him gone. Without Middleton, Giannis Antetokounmpo is struggling by himself, really. And the guy is struggling now with Middleton now anyway. But now without him, it's like it's a problem because that was your number two guy. That was your number two in command. And for him to have knee surgery before free agency, and there's a possibility of him not coming back, that's bad news for Milwaukee. Because without Middleton, I think Giannis Antetokounmpo is by himself doing it all, and it's hurting Antetokounmpo too much, and it's too much pressure on the kid. And I call him a kid because he's still a kid, really. He's a guy that's in his 20s and heading into his 30s. But realistically, this guy's heading his 11th year in the NBA. He's not getting any younger. And I think realistically, Chris Middleton was a good number two guy to lean on here if Giannis was having an off night. You still have True Holiday there, don't get me wrong. That's a good setup. But that's part of your big three, but that really isn't a good, big enough three. And when you just have Holiday and Antetokounmpo, it might be a little challenging. Now, it's not going to be like Kansas City where the Chiefs just won a Super Bowl without Tyreek Hill. Okay, we can all establish that. I mean, the Chiefs they're not the Kansas City Chiefs. They're not that elite. I mean, if they can't get out of the first round and get to the 8th seed at this point, I don't see them winning the NBA Finals the following year. That's just not going to happen. But Chris Middleton, I think, realistically, and I thought about this the other day, and I said to myself, where would he go? What team would take him? Because I think the Jaylen Brown experience is over in Boston. I really do. Believe it or not, I think Chris Middleton can end up in Milwaukee. I'm sorry, in Boston. That's what I meant to say. Chris Middleton is going to end up in Boston as a Boston Celtic to play alongside Malcolm Brogdon. Marcus Smart is probably going to end up in Milwaukee as well. And I don't know if it's based on a trade or free agency here, but I think the Marcus Smart thing is done to the point now where he's not good enough to be on the Celtics anymore at this point. Brogdon's a little bit better. And I think having Gallinari around will help. You got size in Middleton. You got size in Gallinari. Brogdon is a good player to have here. It just all the way around, it makes the most sense. to have that tandem together. Chris Middleton going to Boston to me is a huge pickup for Boston because I think that leads into a championship. I think it does. And Tatum being hurt last year and Brown failing to step up when it really mattered here, that was Brown's last chance. And I don't think Brown's worth the 5 years, $295 million that they're going to offer him. Jason Tatum, on the other hand, yes, he's worth the $318 million. The problem is they cannot sign both because you're going to have the exact same result every time, choking. Either Tatum chokes or Brown chokes, or they both choke. It's not a good fit. It's not a good fit at all. And I think with Chris Middleton being there in Boston to me as a replacement for Brown is much better. Yes, he's still is he a top 5 shooter, Middleton? I'd take 15, 20. Brown is not even in the top 20. Probably top 25. Jason Tatum is the guy at this point in Boston. That's it. And Brown has wanted out of Boston at this point anyway. And now we're talking about money. It's like, But Brown is not really a guy who's about the money. So it surprises me that this guy would even feel the way he feels when it comes to the money aspect of things. So it does surprise me. This is the route they're going to take here, especially now with Chris Middleton. I just look at that and I go, that's probably a possibility. You know what's also a possibility at this point, and it may actually sound realistic here? Chris Paul possibly going to Boston Celtics because he was waived and released by the Phoenix Suns as of this week. And apparently it was his daughter was bullied in school because I guess he never won a championship. And then not even within 24 hours, he gets cut from the Phoenix Suns. And ironically here, I think this was a big mistake on Phoenix's part because realistically, that's not a good cut. That made absolutely no sense. Now, do I want Chris Paul to be part of the Boston Celtics? No, because the guy can't stay healthy. Now, if we're talking young 20-year-old Chris Paul in his early 20s, I'd say hell yes. I'd take that guy any day of the week. I'm not taking a veteran at this point that can't stay healthy. I'm just not taking it. Or he chokes in the playoffs. He's another choke artist. But you know what Chris Paul could go? And I think realistically here, it makes the most sense here. Atlanta. You get Atlanta to take Trae Young out of Atlanta because we all know he wants out of there anyway. Have him go on a contending team like the Boston Celtics, and there you go. Trae Young, Jason Tatum, Chris Middleton. That is the best 3 you're going to have going forward. As crazy as it sounds. Because Trae Young, to me, going to Boston is more realistic than him going to Los Angeles with LeBron James, who's on the fence right now about retiring at this point if he doesn't get what he wants in Kyrie. The problem is Kyrie don't want to go to freaking LA. He wants to go to stay in Dallas with the Mavericks. And basically force Luka out of Dallas to bring in LeBron and have Luka either play for the Lakers or the Clippers. Most likely the Lakers. But to me, that is the best option if you have right now, if you're Boston. You get rid of Jaylen Brown, you get rid of Marcus Smart, Brogdon you can use as your sixth man and your hustle award and all that crap. Derek White at this point, I think, look, it was nice knowing him at this point. He was a good defensive player. I think realistically, you bring a guy in like and Trae Young's been getting better defensively too. I'm sorry, he has. He gets under Marcus Smart's skin very easily. Derek White to me is a good replacement in Phoenix for Chris Paul. There's no doubt about that in my mind. Now, does it hurt the Boston Celtics' chances at this point in the playoff run? No. The guy was, ranked 29 out of 32 for a certain position and style of play. Defensively, he was all right. Offensively, he was not that great. Marcus Smart was in the exact same place as well, 25 out of whatever. It's not that good. When you have those kind of stats like that, you remove those players. Those players are holding you back. You don't give them extensions. You don't give them contracts that are ridiculously too high. And you don't overpay these guys. You don't overpay players like that don't contribute a lot that much, unless it's certain situations. You do that to consistent players. And to me, I just think that's kind of stupid at this point. It really is. It's really stupid. But I think Trae Young going to Boston with Chris Middleton coming to Boston helps out. You don't give Middleton a big-time contract. Young, you give him somewhat of a max contract, I think, to Boston. And I think you give Jason Tatum that exact same thing. Brown will find his way. Brown, I think, realistically, will probably end up going to Atlanta anyway. That's more likely to happen to him getting a max contract right now ahead of Jason Tatum. But if that does happen somehow, it's going to go in exact order. The least amount in that second All-Pro contract for $295, and Tatum gets and I think this is my prediction that this actually happens. It's not going to be a 6-year deal. It's going to be 11 years, $375 million. If they do this. And you want to know why it's going to be that much money for that many years? Because they do not want to lose their investment. Rick Rosbachek, by the way, who neutered these players. Neutered them. That wasn't about winning a championship. That was about the earnings that Rick Rosbachek would be getting at this point. And a big I told you so from Larry Bird if it didn't pan off. Because Larry Bird doesn't think highly of Brown and Tatum getting these max contract deals. I'm just saying. He likes those two together, but he does not like the idea of them getting max contracts. It'd be a horrible idea. I don't like the idea of it. Flight Mike on his Instagram thing, he does podcasting through Instagram. He don't like the idea of it either. There's a lot of people like that just don't like the idea. So I don't blame them for feeling the way they feel about the scenario. I just don't think that that's the thing to go. James Harden currently torn between the 76ers and Rockets in free agency, which, no duh. The guy is going to end up in Houston anyway. He likes the Houston Rockets area better. He likes going out in the West Coast out there, vibing, doing whatever he wants to do, not focusing on the games. He's all known for going to strip clubs and stuff like that, rodeos. There's more to do in Houston than there really is in Philadelphia. I'm sorry. There really is. Philadelphia's meant for history. That's it. Houston's more for partying. It's the state of Texas, for Christ's sakes. Anyway, Danielle Hunter has been looking for serious trade interests. This is according to CBS Sports. This is where the active spot will be most likely for Hunter. The Carolina Panthers are one. The Ravens are another one. Here's my prediction. I think Hunter ends up going to the Ravens. I wouldn't be surprised if he helps that defense get a lot better. The 49ers and Texans also were options as well. I like Hunter's chances in Baltimore because they need a big pass rush adjustment. And Daniel Hunter at this point, who's been consistently good for the Vikings over the last 4 or 5 seasons, that's the guy you want to have if you're Baltimore. And I wouldn't be surprised if he ended up being with the Ravens. I don't think he would be. Forgot to mention Nikola Jokic had, for the first time in NBA Finals history, had a 30-20-10 game in Game 3. So that happened as well. Troy Aikman marriage seemingly over to his filing for a divorce after seeing photos of him with a young woman. Her name is Catherine Aikman, I believe her name is Kate Aikman. It was his second marriage. Got married back in 2017. They are now filing for divorce here after 6 years. So very disappointing. Very sad to hear that actually happened, but it is what it is. I mean, if you fall in love, you fall in love. It happens. I'm not making a big deal about it really that much per se, but it happened. It happened this week. It was kind of a weird week for a lot of things. I got a couple more stories. As far as love stories go, there's been a lot of it this week. I was surprised I was actually going to talk about here. The Zion Williamson story and then Troy Aikman. I think that would have come up. Lionel Messi set to sign with the Inter Miami team for the MLS club, signing the Argentina superstar beating out Barca and Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia offered him over $4 billion supposedly to play soccer for Saudi Arabia, which he turned that down really quickly. He really did. He was not happy. And honestly, at this point, Lionel Messi, I'm not surprised because to play for Inter Miami because Miami's a nice vibe. Miami's got a good thing going right now at this point as far as great sports teams go. Look at the Miami Heat. They're in the NBA Finals. Game 4 in Miami later on tonight. We'll probably see Lionel Messi flying to Miami to watch that game. Wouldn't be surprised that Argentine superstar, one of the best soccer players alive today, part of the Inter Miami team for the MLS season going forward. That's great for soccer. That's great for the MLS. Messi, who's been the top tier, probably the face of Argentina at this point for years. This is what he said. He said, quote, "I made a decision that I'm going to Miami." Messi said, "It's not a finalized 100%. There are a few things left. But we decided to continue down this path. If Barcelona didn't work out, I wanted to leave Europe, get out of the spotlight, and think more about myself." So he wants to go to America. Good for him. Lionel Messi, by the way, who's been awesome at this point. He's been MLS and Adidas have worked together since the league's in back in '96, and the German brand had worked with Messi since 2006, signing a lifetime footwear deal in 2017 per The Athletic. At the announcement, MLS formally confirmed that the deal is not quite done, which obviously that's not surprising to anybody. Messi's 35 years old, though, and he's still playing at a high level. So it's kind of interesting at this point that we'll get to see him play in Miami. I'm looking forward to it. I really am. I'm looking forward to him debuting for Inter Miami. Should be very interesting. Aaron Judge, back on the IL. This is back on Wednesday. He's heading back with a injured to his foot, a contusion and ligament sprain in his hurting toe after a highlight reel catch that he had jumping over the wall at Dodger Stadium. I think it was he even at Dodger Stadium? It was on Wednesday afternoon. It was against the White Sox. It was on Tuesday. Okay, so it was on Tuesday against the White Sox. They made a highlight reel catch at Yankee Stadium. So that's that. Otherwise, Aaron Judge back in the IL means the Yankees are going back to struggling. And my take here is this. He's trying to become the next Gincarlo Stanton. You look at the highlight reel of home runs he had last season and the games he had played this year so far and missed this year. He's got the body type of a jacked up Gincarlo Stanton. And the problem is that he's injury prone, and it happens to happen after a big, massive signing that he had this year for 9 years, $90 million. Gee, what a coincidence. They just gave Gincarlo Stanton that exact same deal at this point a long time ago. And the difference now here is Stanton is playing this route easily because you want to know why? Because you have moron Boone as your manager who makes dumb decisions after dumb decisions. And it's biting this guy in the ass. That this is their face of the franchise back on the IL. It does not help. It doesn't help. It realistically, it sucks. So if I'm the Yankees at this point, I hope and pray this guy's not out for a long period of time. Because you need this guy for a deep playoff race at this point. And it'd be very disappointing if he ended up missing the playoffs because he was not healthy enough to be playing in the first place. That would suck. That would be a problem. And I don't think they want another problem now happening going forward here. But I'm just saying, that could be a problem. That could be a problem now going forward. We have some NHL news. Shane Doan, the longtime Phoenix Coyote, joining the Toronto Maple Leafs front office as a special advisor. He'll also be having Brad Trevely as his general manager going forward for the team. So very interesting going forward with them. The Jackets the Blue Jackets gets Damian Serverson from the Devils in a sign and trade deal. The deal that will be giving him a new 8-year, $50 million deal with the Blue Jackets as of Friday. Someone who was 28 years old. The contract was worth $6.25 million annually with the Devils, who then traded him to the Blue Jackets for a third-round pick in this month's draft. This, I think, is an issue because I think Serverson was a great player to have on this team and was a great contributor to the playoff run they had all year. And to have him let go and have him go to Columbus, I think was one of the dumbest decisions that the Devils could have done here. For just a third-round pick. Great valuable trade. Win on both sides, but so far in the trade, just think, I don't know. I think they got the raw deal in this one. And Crypto.com is leaving. It won't change. It won't affect the LA arena naming rights, but is announcing that will closing part of its business. However, the change will not affect the naming right deal for Crypto.com arena in downtown Los Angeles. Sources tell ESPN. Here's my opinion about Crypto.com. It needs to die. It should have died this past year. They should have never had it renamed to that at all. I think it was a stupid name for an arena in Los Angeles. The Staples Center will always be the Staples Center. If you didn't want Staples, you could have done H&M Arena. You could have done, I don't know. You could have done Iggy's Doughboys in Los Angeles. I'm pretty sure they'd have Doughboys in Los Angeles. I'm pretty sure they actually have an Iggy's, which I don't think is a Los Angeles area. It's probably known as Rhode Island area, but you get my point. You know, I just realized something, and this actually aggravates me to no end here. The Amica Mutual Arena would have been the perfect choice for Los Angeles. Iggy's would have been a popular decision for the Province basketball team arena name for this past basketball season. I swear to God, if Crypto.com decides to screw around with Mutual Arena, because I'm actually okay with that for now, Mutual Amica Mutual, whatever the hell it is, if they just rename that in the Province basketball arena in at Province College here, or they decide to do it URI, I'm done. I'm done going to their games. Crypto.com, by the way, screwed me over last year. So I'm just saying, I'm not too thrilled about their little schemes here. And the players and the people that are involved, like Shaq, Brady, and all that, for the crypto stuff, I'm not happy about it either. I kind of do feel bad, though, at this point that happened. But they unfortunately had to go through lawsuits. But it is what it is. Obviously, those lawsuits have settled at this point because there's been nothing major happening yet. It's not like Shaq lost everything. But Crypto.com sucks. Anything with crypto at this point is terrible. Anybody that's fallen for that at this point right now, they're going to get taxed in the butt for the next 20 to 30 years to come. I'm just saying. It's not looking good. Unless somehow you got a way to breach that from happening, good luck to you. Frank Vogel still wants Chris Paul on the Suns next year, aiming reports of waiving. They've not officially released him yet at this point, but Chris Paul could end up being with the Celtics. He could. Did I already announce that already at this point? I feel like I just announced that just now. I think I did. I may have announced that at this point. I think I've already given my case at this point. Oh, that's right, I did. Because I said I had Trae Young going to Boston. I forgot. And Chris Paul and Jaylen Brown hooking up in Atlanta. That actually could be a realistic thing. Anyway, this was a loaded show. Game 4 is on tomorrow night with the Panthers and Knights again. Like I said before, Game 3 of the NBA Finals is on tonight. But before I actually do sign off here, I do have some baseball to talk about from that was on last night. Red Sox lost 3 out of 4 to the Cleveland Guardians. Look, I'll say it once, I'll say it again. This Red Sox team is a waste of time. They're not worth watching. The fact they lost 3 out of 4 to a Cleveland Guardian team, that is absolutely terrible in my opinion. And it's mind-boggling that they are good this year against, or I shouldn't even say they're even good. They're average this year against winning teams, but they're terrible against losing teams. That I can't figure out. For the life of me, I cannot figure out how they managed to just do this, but they've managed somehow to manifest this in the bud. Because literally at this point, this makes no sense. I mean, they were favored to win this series. Chris Sale, by the way, who's on a 60-day injury report because of a shoulder problem, keep him there. I want this guy gone for the rest of the year. Let this Red Sox team completely combust. Because if this is the only way to get rid of Chaim Bloom here, realistically, good. Get rid of him. I want nothing to do with him. And the fact they benched Alex Verdugo, which I'll get more into Chris Sale and the Verdugo stuff, but here's my initial thought on that one before I even wrap this up here. Verdugo getting benched here for the lack of hustle he had in that game, good. What has Verdugo done for me lately? The guy's nothing but a waste of time, too. He's another one. He's another one. All he is talk. He's not a Gold Glover. He's not the big man on campus. This is not college baseball. I'm sick of this guy anyway. He's wasting my time. By the way, I know he's 286 this year, 5 home runs, 24 RBIs. That's tied for 30th with 286, by the way. That's 150th plus out of the 1,000 players they have in baseball. And he's tied for 132nd for RBIs. That guy's got no hustle at the bat, never mind the outfield. He's got nothing going on at this point. They're playing the Yankees right now, by the way. They're scoreless, by the way. But I want to get into last night's scores because I think this is actually more remotely entertaining here. That you lose 3 out of 4 to the Cleveland Guardians, and the only win you had was back on Monday. I'm just saying. Like, that to me is just laughable at this point. They lost 10-3, by the way. Everyone was wondering about this game. Jose Ramirez had 2 home runs in the game. Actually, he had 3, 3 homers. Now, that's a guy with hustle. Why couldn't the Red Sox get him? Why they had to go with re-signing Rafael Devers here? A guy at this point who's playing through injury, who shouldn't be playing through injury at all. I'm just saying. Like, why do we get this guy back around here again? Went over 3 over 3 with a walk. And he's hitting 243. Ramirez, by the way, hitting 267, who's got 3 home runs, 5 RBIs yesterday. Just FYI. You lose 3 out of 4. You're a game below 500. You're in 5th place right now at this point. You start out the year in 5th place. You practically were in 3rd place not too long ago. And now you drop back down to earth again in 5th place. They're an overhyped machine at this point that is blown up and is already dead. This Red Sox team has got nothing going on. They just lost Chris Sale for 60 days at this point. You're not going to get this guy back till mid-August. And by that point, you're already out of playoff contention anyway. So it doesn't matter. They lost 10-3 last night, though, by the way. Angels got the 3-1 win over the Cubs. The Angels, I believe, in this series, because they're now 34-30, they actually won this series. They won this series. They actually swept the Cubs. So there you go. They swept the Cubs. The Giants took the series against the Colorado Rockies. They actually, I believe, swept the Rockies here, if I'm not mistaken here. And they did. They swept the Rockies. So the Giants are 32-30. The Rockies are now 26-38. They're not that good, the Rockies. They suck. Dodgers and Reds ended up in an even series. The Dodgers shut out the Reds yesterday 6-0. Rays beat the Twins 4-2. I believe the Rays actually won this series 2 out of 3, if I'm not mistaken. Or they did sweep them as well. Oh, no, it was a sweep. Oh, yeah, 2-game sweep. Okay. So that was Thursday. Now, the Orioles beat the Brewers 6-3 yesterday. The Orioles took that series, I believe, initially. Although it could have been a Brewers win in that series. I think the Orioles avoided a sweep here. Now the more I even think about it. And they were even here. I thought they had a 3-game series. No, they just 2. Okay. So they had a 2-game series there. Due to the air quality being terrible at this point, the Tigers-Phillies series was postponed. They're going to make up the other games that were missed here on the 22nd, I guess they had no doubleheader, but the Yankees and the White Sox did. The White Sox won game 1, 6-5. Phillies had to make up the makeup game from June 7th that was postponed on the 7th. They won 3-2. I believe Philadelphia won on a walk-off. It was 2-1 in the bottom of the 9th. And it was Cody Clemens that had a walk-off homer for them. And ironically, it was their former teammate that had a walk-off of their former team. So there you go, 3-2. Blue Jays beat the Astros 3-2. Blue Jays avoided a sweep, I believe, against the Astros. Not 100%. Or it might have been an even series. I think they were a 4-game series, I believe. Not 100% sure. The Mets still stink. They lost 13-10 in 10 innings, thanks to Ozzie Abiles walking off in a fashion right now, 3-run shot. And the Braves swept the Mets. Yankees, by the way, avoided being swept in their doubleheader. They won 3-0 in the makeup game. And the Nationals and Diamondbacks postponed. Their makeup date is the 22nd, by the way. So I guess their games were doubleheader games, I guess, yesterday. I guess the only one that wasn't doubleheader was the Diamondbacks and Nationals, which the Diamondbacks at that point were winning that series anyway, so it doesn't really matter. But you get the gist of it. And by the way, the air quality, because of the Canadian wildfires, which I meant to mention earlier, not a good look for Major League Baseball at this point. That these games postponed. By the way, DC, the worst it's been. And if I'm Major League Baseball at this point, and I need to get the hell out of that area, I would move the Nationals temporarily. And this is just my opinion. I think they should just move this team out of Washington at this point. I wouldn't have them go to Canada. It's not a good place for them to go out there. I think at this point, what choice do you have but upstate New York in Cooperstown? I don't know how bad the area in New York is right now at this point. I've been told that Washington, D.C. and Philadelphia, and I read this in an article, actually. I was also told, and I actually had to read it in an article to confirm it, that that D.C. and Philadelphia were the worst areas to be in with the air quality. Their air quality is just as bad as Arizona, as Tulsa, Oklahoma, Dallas, Texas, Houston, Texas, Toronto, Canada, Montreal, Canada, just the whole area. Not a good look. DC is number one in bad air quality. And I think that's a bad sign. If I'm the president of the United States right now, I would try to do something about it. If I was Congress, I would look into it right now and talk to some scientists out there. Fix the problem, because until you fix this problem, I don't think anyone's going to want to leave their house. We're looking at a pandemic in Washington, D.C. in 2023, and it's the air quality. That's not good. So I'm just saying, I mean, it's realistic at this point, but, it is what it is. By the way, we have some scores right now for live games that are on right now. Red Sox and Yankees are scoreless in the top of the third. Cubs Giants play later on tonight at 10:15. Diamondbacks are beating the Tigers right now 2-1 in Detroit. Tampa Bay Rays are beating the Texas Rangers 4-1. Orioles are up 2-0 right now on Apple TV in the bottom of the second inning. Dodgers are beating the Phillies 1-0. Mets are beating the Pirates 1-0. Twins and Blue Jays are scoreless in the second. Astros are beating the Guardians 4-0. The Nationals are beating the Braves 1-0. They're in the first right now in Atlanta. Marlins are beating the are playing the White Sox tonight at 8:10. A's are playing the Brewers at 8:10. Reds and Cardinals are playing at 8:15. Padres are playing the Rockies at 8:40, and the Mariners and Angels are playing at 9:38 tonight in Anaheim, which means we're getting the Ohtani-Trout combination here, and it looks like Ohtani is pitching against Luis Castillo. Probably one of the better pitching matchups you're going to get all year, as far as Major League Baseball goes, as far as clutch pitching goes. Castillo coming in there in the game with a 2.55 ERA with a 4-3 record. Taking on Ohtani, who was 5-2 with a 3.30 ERA. Ohtani has pitched 71 innings this season. Castillo has pitched 70 2/3. So we'll get our first taste of what those two will deliver. And I'll talk more about that game tomorrow. As far as that series going this weekend, if I had to say that was the top series right now, I'd say probably it is, just based on who the starting pitchers are tonight. Rangers and Rays, that's a testament right now of who the best team in the American League is right now. Obviously with the Rays right now with their record. But overall, the Rays are a real team to beat at this point. This is the real testament here in this series. And, I'll highlight those games tomorrow. As far as the rest of the games go, we'll go for Saturday and Sunday right now. Saturday, when it looks like for baseball, it's Red Sox, Yankees again, Cubs, Giants, Diamondbacks, Tigers, Marlins, White Sox, Reds, Cardinals, Twins, Blue Jays, Padres, Rockies, Royals, Orioles, Dodgers, Phillies, Mets, Pirates, A's, Brewers, Rangers, Rays on at 4:10. Astros, Guardians on at 6:10, and Mariners, Angels are on at 10:07 tomorrow night. For Sunday, you got Sunday night baseball, and you got morning baseball with Diamondbacks and Tigers on at 11:30 at Peacock. The 7 o'clock game is the Red Sox and Yankees, which I wouldn't even bother putting this game on the nightcap here, because realistically, the Rangers and Rays deserve that nightcap. You talk about two of the best teams going at it right now at this point. The Rangers are 40-21. The Rays are 46-19. That's more of a dynamite matchup here. And I think realistically, you're going to get a case of people wanting that game to be flexed. The Red Sox and Yankees don't have the same vibe anymore. The Red Sox suck. They're just trying to play spoil at this point and trying to play upset victors here in a series where they're not going to have Aaron Judge to worry about. And a lot of people that bought tickets to go to that game did not see Aaron Judge or Chris Sale play. That's kind of unfortunate. And it's not doing anybody any good here. By the way, I meant to mention this before, and I promise this will be it. There's a lot of sports stuff this week. This has been a long show here, hour and 20 minutes. If you guys are planning on watching this for an hour and 20 minutes, I thank you very much. But you don't have to if you don't want to. You can skip right through these videos, too. You can skim whatever you want to watch on here. Believe me, I've talked a lot of sports on here today. The Big Ten announced when USC and UCLA are going to come to the Big Ten in 2024. The divisions are being removed. So there's no more divisions at this point going forward. I think that's, to me, kind of a stifling decision. Kind of an odd decision there that they went through with this right now. But everyone will have a rival here. I guess USC and UCLA will be rivals with Ohio State or Michigan. Penn State's already a rival with Ohio State. Like it's a tale of the better schooling here because deep down they know that they're not getting the queen of the crop here in the Pac-12. And as far as the Pac-12 goes, they suck. So they're thinking this is not going to be as good. We're not going to make it harder on them. We're not going to put them in a harder division because it'll be harder for them to play. But I think USC and UCLA can compete with the Big Ten. It's too bad they're not going to have Caleb Williams for a 2024, which it's kind of convenient that they made this into a 2024 deal anyway, knowing that Caleb Williams will be on his way out the door and going in the NFL by that point. So if they got a quarterback in the future, it's great. But it's like now you kind of get yourself into limbo here going, well, you eliminated the division, so now it'll be a lot easier for USC and UCLA not to worry about clinching a certain division, which is why I think they did what they did here. Now, I think it's kind of dumb they got rid of divisions. I like divisions in football. I like the fact that you're fighting for a division and both division winners face off in that Big Ten championship. It's just basically a carbon copy of the Big 12 and what the Big 12 really is because there's no real division in that one either. It's just whoever wins has more conference wins, and that's it. There's not really a true leader in that division. You could have like a 9-3 year, and a team that went 8-4 could have more conference wins that could lead that conference. It's not a set division by wins and losses here. So to me, that bothers me a lot. That always bothered me a lot in college football. Even when they had divisions, they had that same issue. So to me, it's like, what's the point? You know, what is the point of these conference wins at this point if they're not leading a division? I don't know. But it turned into a Big 12 format at this point. And I don't know if that's the way they want to do it, if they're going to go by wins and losses here, but people are more focused on the rivalries. I'm more focused on what wins they have in their conference, in their division, and overall in non-conference play. And the strength of schedule says they're better. The better team should be the one that hosts the championship, while the lesser ones are just like looking in. I know there's a million bowl games going on at this point, but, you know, it is what it is. I mean, we already had UCLA already get sued last week for not competing in a bowl game due to COVID in 2021. So I'm just saying, like, that's that baggage going into it right now. Maybe the reason why they got rid of those divisions. Maybe it's kind of coincidental at this point, considering that they announced this like a week later. I'm just saying, like, everything about this just seems a little twisted, a little bit odd, you know. I'm just saying. But now we're finally done. Now we're finally done with the podcast. There'll be some sports stuff on tomorrow, non-sports stuff related probably tomorrow on the show. I knew this was sports heavy today because there's a lot that happened this week. A lot that happened this week that I didn't expect to happen, but it did. I removed the LGBTQ stuff. The only thing that wasn't in the episode was Anthony Bass for the Toronto Blue Jays was released due to an LGBTQ negative comment, which I didn't want to get into that because I didn't want to be going on a random hour for over an hour in the show. This would be a 2-hour show if we would have done that. Anyway, but enough about that. Thank you so much again for listening to this show. To my subscribers out there who listen to me, thank you so much. My friends and family, thank you so much for all the support. To my subscribers out there who support this podcast, thank you so much. From all my Facebook friends, thank you so much. For Let's Interrupt You Facebook webpage. I know the videos haven't been posted on there a lot, but you can still watch the thing. I do post a link on Facebook myself. I don't know why the feed's not going back and forth. There's been a lot of reports saying it hasn't gone back and forth. And to all the YouTube people out there who are screwing around with my videos, I know you're jealous of me, but because you ain't me, but you got to quit your crap. All right? Just quit it. You know my social media. It is Joe Alva Boston Sports on Instagram, J Alvo Sports 123 on Snapchat, either that or the Sports Junkie. Joe Alva on Bleacher Report. It'll be strictly NFL news. I'm not going to get the NFL news unless the games are actually on. And I'm not talking about preseason. I'm talking about regular season. That will be the regular season swami, as Chris Berwin would say for ESPN. That is my swami at this point. It's like NFL primetime. Joe Alva on TikTok. And that's pretty much it. I really have nothing else for social media. I don't have a Twitter. I have YouTube. I have you guys. I unfortunately have to rely on YouTube to this point to not screw around with my videos. But it is what it is. And they've been screwing around with my videos since this whole thing started. So I'm not too thrilled about that. But otherwise, thank you all so much for watching this podcast today, guys. Enjoy the rest of your night, your weekend, and stay safe out there. We got bad air quality, guys. We got to hang in there. Keep the faith alive. We'll get through this soon, just like we got through the pandemic. So I'll be here if you need my entertainment. Leave your comments below in the section below. If you want to email me, my email is joealvabostonsports@gmail.com. Ironically, I have the same email as my Instagram page, but here's the thing. The email came way before that Instagram name, before my 200 hack on my Instagram. And by the way, if that account does get hacked again, I'm done with social media altogether. So I have a phone number too, but I'm not going to announce it on the thing, obviously. But if you want to get to know me and call me up and leave my text messages, email me personally first. And maybe I'll give you my phone number. And for all the ladies out there who watch this podcast, I know there's some ladies that watch this podcast. I am a handsome white chocolate man. Anyway, I'm going to sign off. I'm out. I'm not going to pull a Zion Williamson and knock up three girls at once. Not going to do that. So until next time, guys, I am out. See you all later. See you all tomorrow, actually. Yeah. Bye.